2006. It was a year that many in the small town would never forget. A year that would forever be etched in their memories, not for the joyous moments, but for the chilling events that unfolded. A desolate, abandoned house stood on the edge of town. It was a place that had long been forgotten by time, left to decay and be reclaimed by nature. The overgrown weeds and creeping vines seemed to guard its secrets, whispering tales of the past to those who dared to listen. It was a place of broken windows and decaying walls. The once sturdy structure now stood as a testament to neglect and abandonment. The shattered glass and crumbling bricks told a story of a home that had seen better days, a place that had once been filled with life and laughter, now reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. Locals whispered stories about it. They said it was haunted. The tales varied, but they all shared a common thread of fear and unease. Some spoke of ghostly apparitions seen in the dead of night, while others recounted strange noises and unexplained phenomena. The house had become a legend, a source of both fascination and dread for the townspeople. Inside, a horrifying discovery awaited. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, as if the very walls were alive with the memories of the past. The eerie lighting cast long shadows that seemed to move and shift, creating an atmosphere of palpable tension. It was a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, where the ordinary became extraordinary in the most terrifying way. It was a crime scene. It was caught on tape. The footage was grainy and shaky, but it captured the essence of the horror that had taken place within those walls. The yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the breeze, a stark reminder of the violence and tragedy that had occurred. It was a scene that would haunt the dreams of those who witnessed it, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of everyday life. This wasn't just any crime scene. This was different. There was something about it that set it apart, something that made it more than just a tragic event. It was as if the house itself had absorbed the evil that had been committed within its walls, becoming a living, breathing entity of malevolence. The very air seemed to hum with a sinister energy, a palpable sense of dread that seeped into the bones of those who dared to enter. This was real. This wasn't some TV show. The footage was raw and unfiltered, capturing the true horror of the scene. There were no special effects, no actors playing a part. This was reality in its most brutal and unrelenting form. The images were seared into the minds of those who saw them, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present specter of death. This wasn't a movie set. This was real life. The events that had transpired within those walls were not the product of a writer's imagination, but the actions of a real person. The bloodstains on the floor, the broken furniture, the signs of struggle, all were evidence of a horrific reality that could not be denied. It was a sobering reminder that evil was not confined to the pages of a book or the screen of a television, but was a very real and present danger. And it was about to get even more real. The investigation was just beginning, and the full extent of the horror was yet to be uncovered. The tension was palpable, the sense of impending doom almost suffocating. Each new piece of evidence brought with it a fresh wave of fear and uncertainty as the true nature of the crime slowly came to light. It was a journey into the heart of darkness, a descent into a nightmare from which there was no escape. The video footage was unsettling. It showed the interior of the house. The camera panned across the dark, empty rooms, capturing the eerie stillness that seemed to hang in the air. The shadows danced on the walls, creating an almost hypnotic effect. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching and waiting for the next chapter in its dark history to unfold. It was dark. Shadows danced on the walls. The flickering light cast strange, distorted shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. It was a place where the ordinary rules of reality no longer applied, where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred. The shadows seemed to whisper secrets, hinting at the horrors that lay hidden within the house's walls. It was like something out of a nightmare. The house was a place of fear and dread, a place where the past and present collided in a terrifying dance. It was a reminder that sometimes the most frightening things are not the monsters of our imagination, but the very real horrors that exist in the world around us. The house stood as a testament to this truth, a silent witness to the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of everyday life. The house had a history, a dark history. It stood at the edge of town, shrouded in mystery and fear. The locals avoided it, their eyes casting wary glances whenever they passed by. The house seemed to breathe, its broken windows like eyes watching, waiting. It was as if the very walls whispered secrets of the past, secrets that no one dared to uncover. People whispered about its past. They spoke in hushed tones, afraid that the house might hear them. The whispers were like a ghostly chorus, echoing through the town. They told tales of strange occurrences, of lights flickering in the dead of night, of shadows moving when no one was there. The whispers grew louder with each passing year, feeding the legend of the house. They talked about a family that lived there, a family that vanished. The family was once well known in the town, a picture of happiness and prosperity. But one day, they were gone. No one saw them leave. No one heard a sound. It was as if they had been erased from existence. The only remnants of their presence were the old family photos, now covered in dust, their smiles frozen in time. No explanation, no trace. Gone. The house was left in disarray, as if the family had left in a hurry. Furniture was overturned, personal belongings scattered, cobwebs grew in the corners, and dust settled over everything like a shroud. It was a scene frozen in time, a snapshot of a moment when everything changed. The silence of the house was deafening, a stark contrast to the life that once filled its rooms. The stories sent shivers down your spine. They were tales of terror, of unexplained phenomena that defied logic. People spoke of hearing footsteps in the empty halls, of seeing figures in the windows. The fear was palpable, a living thing that wrapped itself around you, making your heart race and your skin crawl. It was a fear that lingered long after the stories were told, a fear that made you question what was real and what was imagined. They were the kind of stories you told around a campfire, stories that made the flames flicker and the shadows dance, the kind of stories that made you huddle closer to the fire, seeking its warmth and light. The night seemed darker, the forest more menacing. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made you jump. The stories were a rite of passage, a test of courage. They were the stuff of nightmares, yet you couldn't help but listen, drawn in by the thrill of the unknown. Stories that made you glad to be safe inside your tent. The thin walls of fabric felt like a fortress, a barrier between you and the darkness outside. Inside, you were safe, surrounded by friends and the comforting glow of a lantern. But even then, the stories lingered in your mind, making you glance over your shoulder, half expecting to see a shadowy figure standing just outside. The relief was fleeting, a fragile thing that could be shattered by the slightest sound. But these stories weren't just stories. They were based on something real, something sinister. The house held secrets, dark, terrible secrets. Secrets that were buried deep, hidden away from prying eyes. The padlocked doors, the overgrown weeds, all served as a warning to stay away. But the allure of the unknown was too strong. The house called to you, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. It was a siren's call, impossible to resist. They were based on something real, something sinister. The house held secrets, dark, terrible secrets. The kind of secrets that could drive a person mad. The flickering lights, the hidden rooms, all hinted at a truth too horrifying to comprehend. The creaky doors seemed to groan under the weight of the secrets they held. It was a place where reality and nightmare blurred, where the past refused to stay buried. Secrets that were about to be revealed. The time had come to uncover the truth, to face the darkness head-on. The old dusty diary held the key, its pages filled with the family's final moments. As the secrets were unveiled, the house seemed to come alive, its whispers turning into screams. The truth was more terrifying than any story, a reality that would haunt you forever. The house had a history, and now, so did you. The crime scene was chaotic. Furniture was overturned. It was like a struggle had taken place, a desperate struggle. Bloodstains were everywhere. They painted a gruesome picture. They told a story of violence, a story of terror, a story of death. But the most unsettling thing was the silence. It was heavy. It was oppressive. It was the silence of death. It was the silence of secrets. Secrets that the house refused to reveal. Nearly 50 law enforcement officials descended upon the house. They were determined to find answers. They meticulously combed through the scene. Every inch was scrutinized. Every detail was documented. They were looking for clues. Clues that would lead them to the killer. Clues that would give the victims a voice. The pressure was on. The eyes of the world were watching. This wasn't just another case. This was different. This was personal. Section 5. The weight of evidence. 12 pieces of evidence were collected. 12 pieces of a puzzle that they needed to solve. Each piece was carefully analyzed. They were hoping for a breakthrough, a connection, anything that would help them crack the case. The evidence was damning. It pointed to a horrific crime, but it didn't tell the whole story. It didn't reveal the motive. It didn't give them a suspect. They were no closer to finding the killer. Section 6. A community in fear. The discovery of the crime scene sent shockwaves through the community. People were scared. They were on edge. They had every right to be. A killer was on the loose. The story dominated the news. It was all anyone could talk about. Fear and speculation filled the air. Neighbors looked at each other with suspicion. No one knew who to trust. Section 7. The power of video evidence. The video footage from the crime scene was chilling. It was graphic. It was disturbing. It showed the brutality of the crime. It showed the reality of what had happened. The footage was shared widely. It sparked outrage. It sparked fear. It sparked a demand for justice. The video was a powerful tool. It brought the crime to life. It made it real for people. It showed them the horror that had occurred. Section 8. The search for answers. The investigation dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Each day brought new challenges and dead ends. The detectives worked tirelessly, sifting through mountains of evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, and chasing down every lead, no matter how small. The pressure was immense, and the weight of the unsolved case hung heavily over the entire department. Weeks turned into months. The police were no closer to finding the killer. The initial flurry of activity had slowed to a crawl, and the once bustling investigation room now felt like a ghost town. The detectives' faces grew more haggard with each passing day, their eyes reflecting the frustration and despair of a case that seemed to be slipping further and further from their grasp. The case had gone cold. The public's interest waned. News outlets that once covered every development now moved on to other stories, and the community's initial shock and outrage began to fade. The detectives, however, remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice, even as the trail grew colder and colder. They knew that giving up was not an option, not for them, and certainly not for the victims' families. But the victims' families were still waiting for answers. They gathered at vigils, held candlelight ceremonies, and kept the memories of their loved ones alive. Their pain was palpable, their grief a constant reminder of the lives that had been shattered. They clung to the hope that one day, the person responsible would be brought to justice. They were still waiting for justice. They refused to give up hope. Their determination was unwavering, their resolve unbreakable. They became advocates, pushing for more resources, more attention, and more action. They knew that the only way to keep the case alive was to keep the pressure on, to remind the world that their loved ones deserved justice. They knew that someone out there knew something. They believed that there was a piece of information, a clue, a witness that could break the case wide open. They set up tip lines, distributed flyers, and used social media to spread the word. They appealed to the public's sense of justice, hoping that someone, somewhere, would come forward with the information they so desperately needed. They just needed that one break, that one piece of information that would lead them to the killer. The detectives remained vigilant, ready to act on any new lead, no matter how small. They knew that sometimes it was the smallest detail that could make the biggest difference. They combed through old evidence, re-examined case files, and followed up on every tip, hoping that the next call, the next clue, would be the one that finally cracked the case. That one piece of information that would lead them to the killer. The search for answers continued, driven by the unwavering determination of the detectives and the unyielding hope of the victims' families. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that they could not rest until justice was served. The search for answers was not just about solving a case, it was about bringing closure to those who had lost so much and ensuring that the killer could never harm anyone else again. Section 9. Unresolved Mysteries. The crime scene at the abandoned house remains one of the creepiest ever captured on video. It's a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the shadows. The case remains unsolved. The mystery lingers. The house still stands, a haunting reminder of the horrors that occurred within its walls. It's a place where secrets remain, secrets that may never be revealed. Section 10. A haunting reminder. The story of the abandoned house is a haunting reminder. It's a reminder that evil exists in the world. It's a reminder that some crimes are so horrific, so unsettling, that they stay with us long after the headlines fade. It's a reminder that we must never forget the victims, and we must never stop seeking justice.